Hello there, good morning, and welcome to this week's edition of Who's Next to Direct Bond 26? Well, according to the Independent.co.uk, 5 directors are pitching to make the next Bond movie have been revealed. This is, of course, after Amazon has taken creative control from the Broccoli family, and they have fast-tracked the next Bond movie to release in 2027 at the latest. This story comes from the Independent.co.uk with a few names that you've heard of before and a few ones that have kind of piqued interest, and it's worth a read. So I'll leave the link to the article below, and it'll be discussed on the podcast this week, which will be left also in the link in the description box below, so do tune in. But here from the Independent, Bond 26, the 5 directors who are pitching to make next movie have been revealed. Popular filmmakers are ducking it out to make the next film in the 007 franchise. The directors in the running for the next James Bond film have been revealed. The 007 franchise faces huge changes due to Amazon MGM taking over full creative control after striking a deal with Bond producers Barbara Broccoli and Michael G. Wilson. While the duo remain co-owners of the franchise, the business decision leaves creative control of future Bond productions in the hands of American-owned Amazon, prompting concern from fans over potential changes to the beloved British film series. Speculation is rife at the moment on who will replace Craig as the spy, but before that, Amazon needs to lock down a director, and there are reportedly new filmmakers who have been pitching for the role. According to Puck, these directors include Dune's Denis Villeneuve, Edward Berger, who achieved awards success with All Quiet on the Western Front, and Conclave, which apparently is a huge hit and is available to stream on streaming platforms. And Paul King, who is also behind Paddington and Wonka, starring Timothy Chalamet, or however you pronounce his second name. Shaun of the Dead and Hot Fuzz director Edgar Wright is reportedly also lobbying for the role, as well as Jonathan Nolan, the Westworld co-creator, who is the brother of Oppenheimer director and Batman trilogy Christopher Nolan, and also has directed the likes of Tenet, which was described as Bond on acid when it came out. That is Christopher Nolan, not Jonathan Nolan, but he is also in the running, or was. The Sun reported that the next Bond film in the series will cast the youngest ever James Bond, and it will be set in the 50s and 60s. Referring to Daniel Craig's 007 death in No Time to Die, an insider said, as sensational as it was, Craig's exit caused a headache because the death is still fresh in the minds of fans. They can't just pretend it didn't happen, so they're now looking at his story as a younger man in a different era, which I think is understandable given the way No Time to Die had ended in 2021. You know, it is still a fairly fresh image and scene in people's minds, and I think it'll be interesting to see now what kind of directing and story-wise they take the franchise in the future. The hunt for a new Bond to replace Craig has heated up in recent months, with rumours including Aaron Taylor-Johnson, Harris Dickinson and James Norton, all 34, 28 and 39 years of age. Production on the next Bond film is underway after being fast-tracked for release, with the film expected to be in cinemas by the end of 2027. When the film arrives, it will match the record for the longest time the world has had to wait for a new Bond film since Sean Connery first played the British spy in 1962's Dr. No. The previous record was GoldenEye, which arrived in 1995, 6 years after Timothy Dalton appeared in License to Kill. But that's it for this article and this segment of the podcast. Who would you like to see direct the next Bond film of the 5 directors mentioned in this article? Be it Christopher Nolan, Jonathan Nolan, Edgar Wright, Denis Villeneuve, or somebody completely different. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. To be honest, right, I haven't seen Dune parts 1 or 2. I've heard of Blade Runner and I've heard of productions that Denis Villeneuve has been a part of, but as I haven't seen Dune, I kind of don't want to give an opinion on that. But as for Conclave was a fantastic film, and Edward Berger, who directed that, seems to be an interesting choice if he is to take up directing the next Bond film in the franchise. However, I've only seen Conclave and I'm only basing my opinion off of that film. I felt that while Conclave was brilliant and excellent in the historical accuracy, about how they go about choosing a pope and what happens during a pope's death and how they plan for a funeral and everything, I feel that if Edward Berger is to be chosen as the next director, he will take more of a historical take on James Bond, and we'll end up with, in my opinion anyway, a possible origin story of Bond, if it's to be set in the 50s and 60s, which sounds interesting at first, but to me, I don't necessarily want an origin story for Bond. We kind of got that a little bit with Skyfall in 2012, with the house and the land and the father figure that he had, and Bond being taken in as an orphan when he was a child and stuff. And we've had it countless times with the various Spider-Man releases, live action Spider-Man films, whereby you know, Parker didn't really have a mother and father, so he looked up to his aunt and his uncle in that respect. And while that is great for that type of character arc, I don't think it would fit well with Bond, but that's just my opinion. As for Jonathan Nolan, I've heard some good things about him. Not only because he is the brother of Christopher Nolan, and Christopher Nolan has had monumental success with the films that he's involved with Oppenheimer, the Dark Knight trilogy. I'm going to say Tenet, even though it wasn't very well received. It was described as Bond on acid at the time when it came out, and a few others. I'm not familiar with Westworld, however, that seems to be like a sci-fi, fantasy-led series. And yeah, I would like to see one of the Nolan brothers take it over. However, I know Christopher Nolan is very dark in his films. So if Jonathan Nolan is to take it over, I wonder, would he have a very similar directing style or a completely different directing style to that of Christopher Nolan? And then Hot Fuzz and Shaun of the Dead, Edgar Wright. Uh, Shaun of the Dead and Hot Fuzz were very funny films. So I would like to see an element of humour in Bond, even though he is a fairly sort of suave, serious character. There are slight humorous elements to him. But I don't want Bond to be a sort of laughingstock, satirical based character. So yes, of those directors, I would like to see, based on my opinion, and this is just thought process, I would quite like to see Jonathan Nolan get the role of director for the film, and of course maybe multiple films after that, purely based on his filmography, what he's achieved with other films like Westworld and series like Westworld and all that. I think Edgar Wright, okay, he's a prominent director, but as I said, I think he leans too far into funny while taking, you know, the piss out of people. But that's just my opinion, as I said, but this isn't my decision to make. So apart from Nolan, who I would like to see direct the film or possibly films in the franchise in the future, who would you like to see helm the direction of the next Bond film, or be it films? Let me know your thoughts in the comment box below. Thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, share and subscribe, and don't forget to click on the podcast link below. That'll take you to the discussion there. Thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, share and subscribe, and leave a review and rating on the podcast, as it does help boost the podcast algorithm and listen to wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe, as I said, and I'll be back again very soon with a brand new video.